Hello, I'm Richard Miller and I'll be taking you through some of the issues involved in making sure you have all the skills needed for an SHDF project and ideas on how you can keep everything aligned. This masterclass is targeting bid-ready applicants, so it will focus on the steps you can take now to strengthen your application, make sure you have all the requirements covered, and keep the team working well together. The question we are dealing with today is my team up to the job? Do I have all the skills I'm going to need? Will they work well together? And what can I do to head off problems? This is important because these are very complicated projects. Delivered at speed, they have to be completed by January 2023. And with quite a few specific rules you must follow. Base competition rules, subsidy rules, procurement rules, and so on. You need to make sure you have the right people with the right skills in the job. The first and most important step is listing all the jobs to be done. There are plenty of sources of information. The competition details tell you what bays expect. PAS 2035 and 2030 are the standards that you are expected to follow for the project. And if you have completed the self-assessment questionnaire and been given access to the SHRA one-to-one support, then the advisors can help you check through your listing and make sure you've covered everything. So list out the jobs to be done and compare them with your own processes for building projects. Where are the differences? Where are the gaps? Where are the additional tasks that you haven't already planned for? This is how we think about retrofit projects in the SHRA. We divide the project lifecycle into 3 phases: preparation, delivery, and post-retrofit. And activities coloured green are those that are mandated in PAS 2035. So this is the preparation phase, up to and including submitting your application and getting SHDF funding. You will have to complete all these activities. The delivery phase takes you through actually doing the installation and delivering the project. But the project continues after the construction and installation work is completed. There is handover and training of the residents, ongoing monitoring and evaluation. BAYS wants to know how well the projects have worked, and you will need to learn from your project for any future activities. This is the PAS 2035 process map. It looks fiendishly complicated, but it's actually quite logical and straightforward. The standard tells you exactly what you have to do at each stage. Like many standards, it appears scary because it's trying to cover every eventuality, but it actually carefully walks you through the steps and makes sure you don't forget anything. What is important is that PAS 2035 defines a number of specific roles, and these may be unfamiliar to you. Each role requires specific training and qualifications, and in some cases, accreditations. The roles can be combined in one person as long as that person has the right qualifications and accreditation. And the standard tells you exactly what is required. So the retrofit advisor delivers retrofit advice to clients and householders. It keeps residents engaged with the project and supported once the project has ended. The retrofit assessor carries out dwelling assessment and supplies data to the coordinator. This is a particularly important role because you need good data on your current stock and its current situation in order to choose amongst the options for interventions and to make the right decisions. The retrofit coordinator is a person with overall responsibility for each stage of the project. Sometimes they also carry out specific project roles where they hold the appropriate qualifications. This role helps to manage the whole project and has a key focus on ensuring a quality retrofit and meeting the needs of the occupants. The retrofit designer is a highly technical role that makes sure that any risks are designed out of the installation and the correct choices are made between the various options. The retrofit installer is qualified to carry out the specific physical installation, and PAS 2030 specifies what those requirements are. For example, if you are going to install a low carbon heating system, then the retrofit installer must be MCS qualified. And finally, the retrofit evaluator monitors effectiveness of a project and provides feedback. This is usually a role carried out by the coordinator double hatting. So when you've looked at the requirements from the competition, your own specific needs, how you run your projects, and the PAS 2035 requirements, list out all the jobs, tasks, and roles you have identified, and see if you can put a name against each one. And do those people have the right skills, the right capabilities, and the capacity for this rapidly moving project? Once you've identified the gaps, think about how to bridge them. A consortium raises another question. Will one person cover a role for the whole consortium, or do you need specific people for each consortium member? It may depend on the amount of work to be done and the internal processes of the consortium members. But you should look across the whole activity at consortium level. Have you got every job covered? Can the different consortium members cover the ground that's necessary? Once you've identified the gaps, you have to decide how to fill them. You may be lucky and have already in-house available the staff who can do the job. But if not, then are you going to do this by training? Are you going to recruit new staff? Or are you going to do it by outsourcing? And remember that training and recruiting may take significant amounts of time. So you have to think through what are the practical options for the jobs that you need to add. Now we have the team assembled. How do we keep all the plates spinning through the project? How can we head off problems, and what can we do when they arise? There are a couple of tools I recommend for any complex project, especially a multi-partner project. I mentioned them in the consortium forming masterclass, but they also fit here as well. They don't replace conventional project management tools like Gantt charts and so on, but they force you to be clear about the overall plan and who does what. First up is the RACI chart. It identifies who is responsible for delivering a task, who is accountable for making sure that it happens, who needs to be consulted before a decision is made, and who needs to be informed after a decision is made. The responsible people are the ones doing the actual work. It will probably be a small number, a small team perhaps. Ideally, there should be a single named person who is accountable, because you need to know where the buck stops. And a variety of people will need to be consulted and informed, depending on the task. You can map out the tasks and people in a simple graphic or spreadsheet. It sounds trivial, but you will be amazed how often in a project, different people think they are accountable for specific tasks, or no one has been picked as responsible. Key activities where you haven't figured out how they will be delivered. And it is surprising how often people who've got their heads down, focused on delivering, forget to consult with people who will be directly affected by what they're working on, or don't inform people that a change has been made or a task delivered. The RACI chart makes it much easier to map out who is doing what and keep everyone up to speed. And you can imagine in a multi-party project with different groups taking different tasks, keeping everything aligned is really important, and knowing who is doing what, who they need to talk to, who they need to report to, who is ultimately accountable, is a really important part of the process. The second tool addresses the problem of silos. We all recognize the problem. Teams are following their own priorities, information does not flow, there is suspicion between actors, there are not invented here problems, and very soon people are communicating by tying notes to a convenient brick and hurling them over the wall into another silo, hoping to get noticed. The problem is they often only get a larger brick coming back the other way. One of the solutions to the problem is the boundary object. This is something that sits between different groups and helps neutral communications. It can be a mathematical model, a shared project plan, a roadmap, process maps, all kinds of things. But there are some rules that it has to obey. It must be co-invented and collectively owned. All the relevant groups must be involved. A boundary object cannot be created by one team and passed to another. That triggers misunderstanding and the not invented here thinking. If it's going to be collectively owned, it should be created in neutral territory. If one group hosts the work, it subtly and progressively becomes theirs. You need to find a workspace outside the participants. And you need to choose boundary objects that are persistent. They should not be something that's quickly worked up a few pages and then filed away and never referred to again. Boundary objects need regular use. They should be poked and prodded, revised and appealed to. They should be living documents. You also have to make sure that they have real meaning to all the participating groups. Something that's only important to one team is still important, but it cannot be a boundary object. I've seen the creation of a shared boundary object take partners at loggerheads, frozen in mutual suspicion and sabotage, and switch a light on, allowing them to make swift progress. So as I said at the beginning, boundary object can be anything, but the important thing is that it is shared, co-created, and mutually agreed. Finally, if things do get sticky and blame starts to fly around, you can appeal to your consortium agreement. A consortium agreement can be all kinds of things, and only you will know what is the correct level for your work, but it should lay down the objectives of the project, the roles and responsibilities of each participant, how decisions get made, and what to do in the case of a dispute. It can be a simple letter of intent or memorandum of understanding, all the way up to a full collaboration agreement with contractual obligations. You have to choose what will work for your situation. You hope you won't need it, but it can save an awful lot of grief if something does go wrong. So please, make sure you have an agreement. Make sure you have an agreement that is written down and an agreement that's understood and agreed by all the partners.